All right, everyone, more happy news, which is that the swamp is a little bit more drained today because Henry Kissinger got kicked out of the Department of Defense along with Madeleine Albright. So a couple of war pigs are gone. Trump has fumigated the Department of Defense a little now. This leads to an interesting scenario where potential incoming Biden admin might have to publicly put Henry Kissinger, of all people, back into the Department of Defense. And Kissinger's palling around with the Chinese. And this has been a sort of a long-term thing since the 1970s. It's not really a surprise to anyone. The dude's like 1,000 fucking years old, too. He's more fossilized than McCain was at the end. He's like Strom Thurmond. Kissinger is one of the all-time great war hawk names, like in human history. Was the pioneer of an admittedly working madman strategy regarding China and in the Nixon era, where the idea was that you acted unhinged and you would fly nuclear bombers really close to the border and make it look like you were going to go invade their airspace. And you basically are just act crazy and antagonistic in hopes that the enemy will negotiate. Now, it did work to an extent. Was it worth it? Was it a good idea to attempt to buzz another nuclear state? The answer is no. The other answer is, while it did work, it has since then been adapted by the Russians, who do it regularly to our airspace in the United States as well as to the European Union now. And so your own strategy, once it's proven successful, gets used against you. People think Putin uses the madman strategy of Kissinger. The Chinese do as well with the Spratlys. Now, it's a little bit different in the naval sense, of course. The U.S., even under Obama, ordered a carrier group to, invade their claimed sea region and just go through and make it clear that we're just going to ignore them. Of course, there was no conflagration because the Chinese knew better than to fire on a U.S. aircraft carrier group. But you have regular problems in that particular region with Vietnam, with Philippine forces, with the Japanese, and the Chinese try to bully people, and so do these other groups as well. To an extent, Malaysia, I believe, and even Brunei, which is a microstate, basically, with a few oil wells. But Trump is draining the swamp. It's kind of belated. He should have kicked Kissinger out on day one. In fact, didn't Trump put Kissinger in that position? I think that he did, pertinent to John Bolton actually getting his particular position. Now, that may have been just strategy, but even having that kind of greasy warmonger around tarnishes, the Department of Defense, to the extent that the Department of Defense is untarnished. It's kind of rusted out anyway. But I think it's good. And anyway, it does set a trap for Biden. It looks more and more like Trump's decisions lately, in the last few weeks especially, have been calculated to set landmines for an incoming Biden administration more than anything else. I think that Trump is still holding out hope that the fraud cases and lawsuits over the constitutionality of extended mail-in voting, I think he still believes that can work. I can't imagine Giuliani be working 24/7 and chain-smoking his cigars otherwise. There's a legal precedent for the claims they're making. Personally, I believe Trump won on that basis. Just to be clear, I do believe that he legally won the election because the extended mail-in voting in and of itself was unlawful. If you redact those extended mail-in votes, Trump has won at least 3 of the 6 contested states, thereby giving him more than 270 electors. We'll see what happens, but Trump knows there's the possibility that he's out on his ass on January 20th. I think he does want to run again, and it is feasibly possible for him to do so. But even if he doesn't, and he could be a kingmaker if he decides not to run just by endorsing a candidate, I hope in that case it's Rand Paul. If he can set enough landmines, enough booby traps for Biden, Biden will no longer be privy to that 100-day sweetheart period because he'll have to lurch to the right. He'll have to restore troops to Syria. He'll have to restore troops to Afghanistan, which makes him look like a warmonger. Appointing Henry Kissinger. He's already got to stack his cabinet with moderates, which has already pissed the left off. He'll have to back off most of those proposals, which I predicted long ago. And he'll end up, in the midterms, you won't have a lot of Democratic support without the far left. That most of the Zoomer Dems are socialists and stuff like that. I realize that the Zoomers appear based and have lurched far to the right, probably because their older millennial parents are a bunch of fuck-ups, and the young Gen Xers, they're a bunch of lolberals. That being said, that the proportion that is liberal is much more left than previous generations. Has more in common with the fringe millennials, I think, than any other group, even if it's an apparent minority of the generation, which should shock the Democrats and make them worry about future demographic trends. That being said, Trump appears to be basically setting the stage wherein Biden can only restore what he conceives of as U.S. foreign policy, especially by alienating large swaths of the electorate. And if that happens, then Biden becomes a lame duck very quickly. The leftist Dems will abandon him. He'll no longer even have the control of the House. The Democrats will hold it, but in a schismatic manner, where a lot of the upstart Democrats in the House that did win, they're leftists. They're progressives. They're like AOC and people like that. They're not going to work with Biden directly on the proposals that he's still sticking to. Look at gun control. Bellwether for Biden. I know I'm getting a little bit off the issue of Kissinger finally being gone and hopefully never being restored to any public office or appointed position, rather. Joe Biden has backed off on everything already. Look at gun control. His omnibus platform statement on gun control initially was we're going to ban assault weapons. Now his thing calculated to piss even the left off is just to tax assault weapons. I know that there are quotes around that. AR-15 is a sporting rifle, but people consider it to be an assault weapon. High-capacity magazines, they were supposed to be banned, Joe. You told the left you were going to ban these evil, scary weapons. Now he's saying, oh, but we're just going to tax it so rich people can have high-powered rifles and poor people cannot. You're basing it on wealth is the worst goddamn thing he can do. There's a resurgent pro-gun rhetoric among the left, and now he's seeking to disarm them, essentially. Except the trust funders will be able to pay that $200 a year per weapon and per magazine tax. I know I would as well. Of course, it'd be unconstitutional for it to be imposed. This has already been spoken of by lower courts, and I'm sure SCOTUS would smack him in the ass if he tried to impose it. But even the idea of imposing it, when you've said you want to ban these things, now you just want to tax them. No, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, Joe. What about the Green New Deal? He's backed off of that. Trump even forced him to do that in the second and final presidential debate. Remember that? So yeah. Kissinger's gone. Now Biden, potentially, if he's an incoming president, he has to appoint Henry Kissinger and put troops back in Afghanistan. That's going to be so endearing to all the millennial leftists who still have flashbacks about the Iraq War era. Oh, what a great time this is. This is Trump's grand strategy. This is a little bit of 4D chess. Yes. That's about all. Peace out.